Well, I'm here with Jennifer Stoops today over at Park Avenue. She's a senior vice president, and I would love to pick your brain, Jennifer, on automation, how you've plugged this into Park Avenue in the full scheme. And looking back, 3 years ago, you and I were on phone calls about Property Meld and how we are going to plug Property Meld into our business and make our maintenance mainstream, faster and automated. So looking at a whole, when we were sitting down trying to figure out who we wanted to talk to, you were one of the first people that jumped out because Park Avenue embraces automation and built that into your daily routine. So I'd really like to know how your automation is helping out your business, what your high points on it, any struggles of implementing it, and what it really has done for Park Avenue.
First of all, I cannot believe it's been 3 years since we had that conversation. I'm floored by that. When you said that, I'm like, golly, time really does fly. I mean, that was those were pre-child days for you. So it seems like a very long time ago. We did. You and I did talk a lot about maintenance automation. It was at the time, and that's just one of the areas. I can tell you that's probably been one of the biggest automation changes we've done. That has been a huge success and advantage for us. Challenges with it, I'll kind of start there a little bit, and it's helped me because it doesn't just relate to automation as far as the challenges. Getting team buy-in in advance to where they're not just nodding their heads yes, they actually are buying in. The folks that work internally in your office that work with you on some of these things, they are not as inclined to change as some of the rest of us are. And so I've recognized very quickly, whether it's changing the ink in the printer, which we don't do a lot of printing, but you get my point, you got to have buy-in. So that was a little bit of a challenge. Honestly, the biggest challenge was just it's technology and it's software. So clearly vendors are not as inclined to be as technology forward thinking as maybe the rest of us are. So getting vendors on board, getting them trained, having them understand that it's not going to be as difficult as they think it is. That was probably our hardest part. And so those two things, when you look at the grand scheme of the positive that it's done for the organization, were minimal. There's very little pain to go and create a process and a way of doing things that made so many other things so much better. And maintenance is the number one reason that tenants move because they've had issues. And it's the number one headache, I would say, if I were to poll everybody in our team, or probably in property management period, it would be maintenance. And so that was a huge one that when we got to a point where we could utilize a tool, for automation of maintenance, that was a game changer for us.
And what else are you guys using with automation throughout your company, if I don't mind prying in there a little bit?
No, not at all, not at all.
Where else are you plugging automation to help free up your staff?
So some of it isn't necessarily freeing people up. Property Meld, obviously, the maintenance automation definitely did. And now our vendors love it. The ability to do the texting feature, the scheduling through that. And we actually are excited now too, because, and I know you guys in your former career, I know you guys used Propertyware also. I love that Propertyware and Property Meld are now starting to talk to each other. That's been huge. My team has loved that part of it because all of those melds that are created, all of the conversations that happen in the text chat, and the billing, which that's being worked out a little bit, but all of them, so think about that. That's your accounting team, your vendors, your property managers and maintenance coordinators, 3 different divisions in your organization are now positively affected by that in itself. Just those 2 things talking, on top of the fact that Meld was already a great asset to us. Another technology tool that we use with respect to our screenings, we do use pet screening as part of our rental application. That was a game changer in the sense that it redefined our pet process. It gave us a clear, defined way to go handle pets, but it also was a game changer in how many homeowners would accept pets. There was a period of time where I'd tell you 50% of our owners were no pets, no pets, no pets. And with this tool now that it is a part of our rental application, while it's not necessarily something that's created an efficiency, but it has created an asset, another level of service, a process that is defined very clearly for our homeowners. So that's one that we use. I'd be surprised if most people aren't using electronic documents. I think at this point, almost everybody. And a new one that we've recently done, we're usually forward thinking on technology. One we were a little slower on, but now we're all in, was self-showings. We definitely, while I've always been, and John too, we've always been very on leading edge with implementing technology. That was one that made me a little nervous, so I was kind of waiting to see how things went with other folks. We don't use Rently, but we do utilize Tenant Turner, and I like what they do. I like how their service works. That is another game changer for us from an efficiency standpoint, because I think everybody falls into this category. In the summer months, your busiest time of year, probably 70% of your team's phone calls, whether you use a VA or you have folks in your office that answer the phones, it's about people calling to either schedule a rental showing or about the rental property itself. So using a service like Tenant Turner and self-showings that are protected through a service like Tenant Turner is amazing, because the call volume has decreased tremendously. Properties are getting rented quicker because the time, it's easier to get appointments for people to go show. You can show in an hour versus if I've got an agent, I've got to wait maybe even till the next day to get somebody in. So those are three big ones for us that have been game changers for sure.
So it's safe to say that implementing technology, especially on the automation side, has changed the way your business runs and has made you guys very more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that you don't need to have as many? You're not now playing we need to hire more people. You're starting to realize that you can get more done with less.
Yep. Yeah, we actually, especially when we implemented Property Meld, we used to have a team dedicated in our office specifically to maintenance internally that, did the work orders and followed up and everything. And balls were still getting dropped because the volume was so tremendous. And a work order would go out and there was no follow up with the vendor to make sure they called the tenants. The next time you knew something was wrong was when the tenant called upset because nobody had scheduled the appointment yet. So that has been a huge game changer. So we didn't necessarily have to let people go. What we did was repurpose them into other areas where maybe, we were lacking a little in customer service and our touch points to our tenants and owners, just to stay in touch with them and not just be reaching out to an owner when they're either brand new coming on board or there's a problem. Now there's touch points throughout the year so that they feel like a valued customer and they're like, gosh, the only time I hear from you is when my property's vacant or I have a maintenance request. Otherwise, and some people don't care. But a lot of owners, especially owners of one property, even if it's just a little newsletter that goes out from their property manager, they like to hear from them once in a while. So we've been able to put some other things in place that maybe had fallen to the wayside that we had great intentions to go do that we weren't doing, and now we can, and it just helps us be better all the way around.
So I'll have to ask you this, because I've seen this in NARPM. I've heard this in the last few conventions. It's always been a touch point. There are a lot of property managers that are still not even on the fence. They're on the other side of the fence and afraid to go into the automation world. What would be your one tidbit of advice to get them to get over the fence?
I think the biggest, and I don't care if it's implementing technology, I don't care if it's changing a process in general, people are afraid of change. When in this business, historically, people are afraid of change. I think the line that I hear most, and it's a no-no in our office. It's like the swear jar that people have at home. The line that people use, well, it's the way we've always done it. That is suicide.
Yes.
That's just the death of your company right there, because it doesn't matter how you've always done it. You have to at least explore. It may still be the best way to do it, but at least open yourself up. When you say it in that manner, it's like, well, that's the way we've always done it. And it's kind of like, that's the final answer. I'm not even going to open up that box to go and see if there's something better, a better way to go do this. It's that fear. It's the fear of one more thing to do, one more thing to implement, trying to get their teams engaged. And you got to try to lead from the top down. So if somebody at the top is excited and sees a way to go create innovation, you've got to go do that and get buy-in working down, because if you don't have it, forget about it. But you can't do that's the way we've always done it. I'm telling you, I hear that so much, and that is like the kiss of death.
I would agree with you 100%. So, well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your crazy day.
I appreciate the invite.
Sit down and talk with me. It's always a pleasure. I always
Thank
enjoy
you.
just having conversations with you. So, until next time, everything keeps rock and rolling in your world, all right?
Same for you, and say hello to your family for me. Thanks, Blaze.
I will.
All righty. Bye-bye.